We're back with the breakfast and Plus TV Africa. Nick Agule joins us this morning for Off the Press. Nick, it's good to have you join us. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians. Nice to be here.
Well, Nick, let's take a look at the Leadership newspaper. It talks about the 10th Assembly. Seems that they are very proactive already. The APC leaders moved to douse tension over sharing formula. That's what you find. Now, underneath 6 audience with Tinubu, Lawal Gbajabiamila may be shut out as Sani Musa joins the race. Public holiday forces lawmakers' inauguration date to June the 13th. These are the riders underneath the bold caption, but still looking at the Leadership now, and it talks about the Naira, and it has been very, very difficult. So here's an appeal. Is there anything that we can do to make sure that the people are suffering less? That's in simple language. Old Naira notes, banks foot drag as CBN keeps moving. So if you walk into the banking hall, I mean, it's not like you're going to get cash, almost not to get cash in most banks. And in other cases, the ATMs are not also dispensing, and you have the POS just charging so much for, almost 40% of whatever it is you're going to be withdrawing. And that's too much, for a people. Soldiers kill commander, 2 others, self in Sokoto, and NMPCL sacks Eroton appoints 18 operating limited as operators, LTDs. That's what you find there. Diarrhea death toll hits 61 in Kanu. Alleged homicide. Doguwa gets 500 million naira bill and bad from constituency. Then you have 52.39% Anchor borrowers loan repaid. Quite interesting. That's it this morning on the Leadership.
Okay, very quickly, we take a few stories from the Nation. Naira scarcity lingers despite Supreme Court judgment. No cash at banking hall, ATM points. Banks await CBN's directive on old notes. The window stories, the window headlines at top. You see INEC to reconfigure BVAS for governorship assembly elections. CBN tackles IMF's claim on anchor borrowers' loans, and 98 senators elect 325 reps elect to get COR today. That is a certificate of return. APC, PDP clash over presidential poll results. Atiku leads protest. APC, PCC, it's a theater of the absurd. Wiki dismisses action. INEC, our allegiance is to Nigerians. Olanik Bekun, 49 others to defend Tinubu's mandate. I think it's going to be a rain for the lawyers who have those briefs. Buhari seeks duty-free access for latest or least developed countries. He was, I think he went for his latest conference, which is a conference, international conference for least developed countries. Actually asked if we are comfortable attending such a conference, knowing that we'll be tagged as least developed countries. All right, those are some of the headlines on the front page of Fair Nation.
Well, away from that, we have the Punch, and the Punch speaks to the order on old notes, Supreme Court order on old note. Banks in partial compliance begins skeletal recirculation, and that's what you find. Another says few banks pay old 500, 1,000 on Monday. Others await directives as Emefiele keeps moving. Most ATMs remain dry. Skeptical bank customers. Traders reject old notes from the banks, of course. I mean, it's just been very confusing. But should that be the case? Whitney Chrisland seeks autopsy review inquest as it begins April the 4th. 50 feared killed as suspected herdsmen invade Benue community. 203 hoodlums arrested during presidential poll. That's according to the police. And INEC challenges Atiku Obi's suit on the beavers, not granting them because, of course, the tribunal case requesting or making the request to have access to the beavers. Now there's also concern saying we need to reconfigure for the governorship election. But the next question you ask is that what happens to the data on that system? You know what it means when you reformat your phone. That's it this morning on The Punch.
All right, and the last paper on our table, very quickly, we take this day. INEC's application to court to reconfigure BVAS raising integrity questions. Commission harps on need to reset devices before their deployment for governorship. State Houses of Assembly polls. PDP, ample evidence shows INEC's deliberate complicity to rig presidential elections. Says Commission deceived Nigerians, knowingly deactivated beavers. APC dismisses opposition parties' protest. Banks resume issuance of old 500 1,000 naira notes to customers at 503 billion naira. CBN records 52.39% repayment under Anchor Borrowers Program. Right, just going to leave that for now. Let's quickly go over to Nick Agule, I guess, on the of the press this morning. Nick, let's start with a picture on that front page of this day this morning. You can see the likes of Atiku, Abubakar, Iyocha, Ayu, and other politicians on the streets protesting. I mean, I never thought I would see something like this before. I can see Tambuwal and Co. These are hardcore politicians who have really enjoyed, the national cake, enjoyed juicy positions in the country before now. But today they are on the streets. How should Nigerians respond to seeing these people on the streets, basically?
Thank you very much, Kofi. When I saw the PDP heavyweights in that truck parading the streets of Abuja, it came to my mind to say, how are the mighty falling? How are the tables turned? Because Vice President Atiku Abubakar, as a sitting Vice President, then were in power, and they made other political parties, particularly the opposition parties, go on rallies like that, protesting in Abuja. There's the iconic picture. You will see Buhari and Tinubu and Co. Holding hands and protesting around the streets of Abuja against the sitting party, then the PDP, for electoral malfeasances and malpractices and all of that. And here is Atiku Abubakar now receiving the bitter treatment that the government that he was vice president meted out to others. And I think that's a big lesson for all politicians in Nigeria and in fact in Africa, that look, if you are in power and you build strong institutions, you are going to benefit from this in due time. If Abubakar, with his principal, President Obasanjo, had built a very strong independent National Electoral Commission, today he, Abubakar, will be a beneficiary of that. But they didn't. The PDP prided themselves that they will be in power for 60 years because they thought they had actually mastered the game of rigging elections, and they couldn't see how anybody was going to usurp them from power. A party that makes such a statement, that it's not the will of the people that is going to keep them in power for 60 years, because the people are not stupid. When they see a government that is not doing well for them, if they go to the ballot box, they are going to vote against you. And we have seen that in this 2023 election. Give it or take it. You realize that these 2023 elections have produced surprising results. And this is exactly what we're saying on live TV in the run-up to the elections, that so long as a candidate was going to be popular, the people were going to stand behind them. And, so INEC just made a very poor showing. Otherwise, they had a beautiful electoral law 2022, and if they had actually complied with that law, Nigeria would have got its first decent elections. But that didn't happen. So to Abubakar and Co., the Dino Melayes of this world, I wish them good luck.
Well, let's move on to the Punch newspaper now. First, I'd like to share your thoughts on the Supreme Court's order that the old Naira note should be allowed in circulation along with the new note up until December the 31st, and the partial compliance of the banks. So you have some banks who are complying not entirely, and the fact that a lot of persons have not also accepted, the use of the old Naira notes in accordance with the order, the ruling of the Supreme Court.
So this is a very interesting situation, and in fact, a totally unavoidable one. The whole thing starts with the central bank hurriedly trying to change the color of the Nigerian Naira. of the three currencies of 200, 500, and 1,000, the highest three denominations. And the CBN, in doing so, specifically mentions as one of the reasons that they want to starve politicians of money to buy votes during the elections. And that was the first wrong step. I mean, a CBN shouldn't be stepping into politics. A central bank is in charge of monetary policy. A central bank is a banker to the government. Is the banker of last resort to the government. These are the functions of a central bank. It shouldn't be a central bank coming in to say, I want to do this to sanitize the political space. But then another unusual thing is the fact that the sitting central bank actually went into politics. He became a politician, contesting for the position of the president. I believe that will be one of the world's first to have a central bank governor jump into the political fray. Never seen that kind of thing. Not even in the banana republics that exist in Africa. So now this hurriedly packaged currency redesign now goes totally wrong, expectedly, because something that you don't give due time to plan, to execute and monitor the delivery, is going to go wrong. It goes wrong, and some governors then go to the Supreme Court to go and ask the Supreme Court to force the hands of the federal government. Why the governors did not join the CBN? That's to
All right, Nick, we seem to have a bit of a connection challenge with you. I hope we can get him back as quickly as possible. Mercy. But the papers are filled with headlines regarding the Naira situation. I mean, see pictures like you rightly mentioned on the Punch newspaper. Nick, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. Yes, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So, I mean, Nick, yes. I'm asking that what are your thoughts on that, the order of the Supreme Court? And now that the banks are not complying entirely and the people are also not complying.
Yeah, so basically, I was building the case, but if we now say, let's come to a landing, what is the way forward? For me, the way forward will be simply for...
I know. Well, we seem to be having a network connection or issue with Nick Agule. Hopefully we're able to have a reconnection.
Obey the Supreme Court. Can you hear me?
No, we lost connection. Can you please repeat your thoughts? Nick Agule, if you can hear me. Yes, now we can hear you clearly. But can you please go through your thoughts?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please. Can you go through your thoughts? We had lost, connection with you.
Okay, but you can hear me now, yeah?
Loud and clear.
Okay, fine, thank you. So the way forward for me is for the federal government of Nigeria and the Central Bank of Nigeria to obey the Supreme Court judgment. That is the sanity that we need in a nation like Nigeria and a time like this. You see, all over the world, the rule of law must hold supreme. You see, I try to tell people that the difference in the development of nations is squarely dependent on the rule of law. If you go to all the places that our young people are jackpying to, the rule of law holds very supreme in those places. Go to the UK, go to the US, go to Canada, go to Australia, the rule of law holds supreme, that there is nobody who can disobey the law and go free, even if he is the leader of the country. So the best thing now to solve this problem, to get out of this situation, is for the federal government of Nigeria and the Central Bank of Nigeria to obey the Supreme Court judgment. All of the old currencies that they withdrew from circulation, they should put them back. Because if the highest court in the land has spoken, nobody else should have anything counter to it. If you have anything counter to it, you must go back to that court and ask the court to reverse itself.
I mean, I'm sorry to, come in at this point, but I like to ask, should the people, the compliance, if the Supreme Court is the Supreme Court and is the highest court of the land, then should the people and the banks be waiting for another directive before they comply. Should Nigerians ordinarily not go about, their businesses transacting with this old and the new note, just as the Supreme Court had ruled? Do they need to hear from the president or, the CBN governor? Do they need another hearing before they act? Because we find out that a lot of people are not taking the money. So if you go about trying to transact with the old note, it's not respected.
So if I take one step back to talk about how governance is arranged under the kind of presidential democracy that we are practicing, we have the three arms of government, and they are expected to have independence from each other. So the legislature makes the laws, the judiciary interprets the laws, and the executive enforces the laws. So if things were to move in the normal way of things, the legislature has already done their bit by making the Central Bank Act. Yeah. Now there was a dispute about the Central Bank Act, and it was taken to court, and the judiciary have interpreted the act and have come up with a judgment that government needs to extend the currency, the old currency's legal tender status to 31st of December. And the Supreme Court judges did that because one provision in the act says that if there's going to be a currency redesign, the people must be given enough notice. So the judges felt that notice that was given up to February was inadequate, in line with the provisions of the CBN Act. So they decided that if they move that deadline to December the 31st, 2023, that will become enough notice or adequate notice as the Act provides. Now, the last bit then is for the executive to enforce the law. Ordinarily, all that needs to happen is for the Supreme Court to write their judgment and then deliver it to the parties. And once they deliver that judgment to the Attorney General of the Federation, it behoves on the Attorney General of the Federation to put everything in place to enforce the judgment. But here we know that the Attorney General of the Federation is a defendant in the suit, and this is where individuals are called upon to take on the role of statesman. If you are a statesman, then even though you're a defendant in a suit and the suit is against you, the office that you're occupying behoves on you to enforce that judgment. So the executive is to enforce the judgment. And if they are not enforcing the judgment, then the plaintiffs can only go back to the Supreme Court and get a bench warrant. Bench warrant for all the people who are supposed to enforce the judgment, including the Attorney General of the Federation, including the Central Bank Governor, and all of that. So these are the next steps that will happen now that this judgment has been delivered.
All right, Nick, before we go, give us your thoughts on one of the stories in several of the papers. I think we'll look at the Nation newspaper this morning. INEC to reconfigure BVAS for governorship assembly elections. Should we be worried? Should Nigerian voters be worried?
Let me put a direct warning to INEC on live TV so that it reaches them that they are playing with fire. Professor Mahmood is playing with fire. He should not even try this. Nigerians went on the 25th of February, 2023 to go and cast their ballot to elect a president and members of the National Assembly. Professor Mahmood must do two things before he talks about reconfiguring BVAS. The first thing he must do, because he's being compelled by the law, and if he does not obey the law, we Nigerians will force him to obey the law. Yeah, the first thing he needs to do is he needs to give us a download of BVAS data, polling unit by polling unit. Because if you accredit a voter, the data is captured in BVAS that this voter was accredited. So if a BVAS is configured with 1,000 voters, that is the registered voters in the polling unit, and only 300 showed up that day to vote, BVAS will carry 300 accreditations. Professor Mahmood must give us that, because that is what we will use to know if that polling unit declares 700 results that there was overvoting. Yes, because the 1,000 registered voters, they can conveniently declare that 700 came and voted, 800 came and voted, whereas only 300 are in beavers. So that is a control for us Nigerians to check that every vote that Professor Mahmood reported was from an accredited voter, and not just them in INEC packing registered voters who didn't come to vote and adding them to a political party. So that is number one. Number two, what Professor Mahmood must do before he talks about this reconfiguring of beavers is to upload every single polling unit result to the IREF, to the portal. He must do it all. 176,846 polling units exist, and every single result sheet must be in the IREF. If he doesn't do this and goes ahead to reconfigure that beavers, Professor Mahmood is calling for fire, and I will call on our retired heads of state. I think we have a lot of them, about 8, 9 of them or so. I will call on all the international community, everybody, to go and meet this arrogant man and tell him he's playing with fire. He's trying to
Nick,
you have to be.
Sorry, Messi.
And he must not be allowed to
Nick,
do
take it easy. We're not calling for anarchy here, you know. But I feel that I think the Electoral Act adequately takes care of this, because a part of the Electoral Act says that the records, the electronic records, are meant to be on a particular database. You know, they're meant to be uploaded. There's a national register. I can't, because of time, we won't go into the exact portion right now. So I think that is taken care of. They're meant to upload everything onto a particular database accessible to any Nigerian, including yourself, on the payment of a particular amount of money, fee. You can get it if you request for it. So let's see what happens. But Nick, thank you so much for your time. We have to rush off. We appreciate you joining us at short notice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a nice day. And Nigerians, please don't be discouraged. Despite the fact that INEC got it horribly wrong on February the 25th, let us all troop out on the 11th of March, which is this Saturday, to elect local leaders. You see, the governors and the members of the state assemblies are the ones that are closest to us. So we need to have quality at that level of governance. Otherwise, we're all going to suffer for it. And I want to pass a last message to INEC. If they are not able to do what Kofi you have just said now, that is back up the entire data on beavers and make sure that it is safe, and it is saved on multiple servers, so that even if they attack one server, the other servers will still carry the data. If INEC is unable to do that before Saturday, they should quietly reschedule the governorship and the state assembly elections to a time where they would have taken care of the beavers data for the presidential and national assembly election. Doing otherwise, they are calling for anarchy.
But Nick, they have to, if there's a reconfiguration to ensure that we can have the National Assembly, the State Assembly, and governorship elections, then they have to do that so that there won't be issues. They will complain again. But Nick, thank you so much for your time. We have to go.
The beavers data cannot carry the data of the elections on the 25th and the elections on the 11th. It can't carry the two. So for them to reconfigure, that means they are going to destroy the data for the 25th election, 25th February election. And what I'm saying is that they must copy that data out of beavers.
All right, Nick, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your time. Some other day would look at, I think the law says they should upload the data, so they have to do that. But we'll have to go. Thank you very much. And Nick, always a thrill having you. And we'll take a break at this juncture. When we come back, we'll be looking at the Naira scarcity, the issue, and Supreme Court's judgment on this. We have a guest, Mukhtar Mohammed, standing by for a wonderful discussion on that.